All right, how's everybody doing? Good morning. Just gonna refresh the feed, make sure we're showing up well. This is Paint with Lovejoy. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And as you can see on the screen, today is a pizza party, pizza day. Um, so a little bit about what we're doing. This is Paint with Lovejoy. I teach first-time and beginner painters how to paint and get comfortable with painting at home. And for what you see on the screen right now, I do recommend that you just pause the video, draw what you see on your canvas, and then pick the video back up when you're ready to start painting. If that seems a little too overwhelming, at the end of this demo, I will upload the Traceable to my website, and you can purchase and download that. And then with carbon paper, you can transfer your image to your canvas and then start painting. And the traceables are a great way to just kind of get that initial composition on your canvas before you even start painting. So for today, I am going to be going with the knife. And I did remember my water, even though I'll only be using the brushes towards the end. A few other videos, I forgot my water and had to go grab it halfway through. But today we're going to be doing the knife, and we're going to be doing a scraping method. And as you can see on here, I am reusing a canvas. There was two, maybe three paintings underneath this. And you can re-gesso a canvas and then paint on top of it again. And there is a link in the description box below that talks about how to re-gesso or reuse a canvas. So check that out. And it's a nice way to kind of save some money and not have to buy so many supplies. So what I'm going to do is we're actually going to start with that background, and then I'm going to come in and put the cheese on the pizza, then we're going to go to the plate, then we'll come in and do the crust and just kind of back and forth. And then at the end, we'll be using brushwork to put the toppings on our pizza. And I'm a pepperoni kind of gal, so I've got pepperonis on mine, but you are more than welcome to make your pizza, your favorite pizza, and put your slices on there. So for the background, I am starting with teal, and I mixed a little bit of white and teal to get to a shade that I like. And you can do whatever shade that you want. And I am using a palette knife. The traditional shape palette knife, and this one's actually my favorite, is this shape. And you have a long edge, a short edge, and then even a tip here. And you can do the same thing, and you're just going to kind of put two fingers here and scrape across. Because I'm on such a small canvas, I'm actually using smaller knives, so I have a little bit more control. But if you're on a bigger canvas, feel free to use one of the bigger knives. If you don't have a palette knife, you can use an old credit card, anything that's going to be a kind of a rigid edge, a thick piece of plastic, those little squeegee things for your screen protectors for your phones that they usually ship with you. Anything that you like. You don't have to use just a knife. Get creative and find alternative sources in your house that you already have. All right, so I am going from the edge of that plate to the edges of the canvas, just filling this in with my light teal color. And then I am going to scrape some darker colors and lighter colors on top of it. And this particular palette knife style is a bit more not the normal palette knife style. This is a bit more my style with the scraping. Traditional palette knife style would be painting really thick and what we call impasto. And it's kind of like icing a cake to where you're manipulating those thick layers of paint on top of the canvas. And I inadvertently stumbled into this scraping method in college and just loved it. And my paintings on my website will have almost 100 layers of paint scraped on them before I consider them done. So I like that acrylic paint you can layer over and over again, and the scraping method, this pushing and scraping method of the palette knife has kept me relatively stress-free for most of my life. And for those of you that have anxiety right now or uncertainty and just need to get it out, the palette knife scraping style is very beneficial. All right. Okay, we got a few more people jumping on. Awesome. Thanks for checking this out. I appreciate all the support. And feel free to subscribe to the channel and check out my other videos. And just find your creative outlets during this quarantine, this isolation, this craziness. So now I'm actually grabbing just the direct teal, the straight teal, and didn't really need to clean the knife off too much since I'm in the same color scheme. And we're going to scrape a few layers few sections of darker color on here. And since this is pretty much kind of an overhead view of our slice of pizza, you can put your shades and your shadows kind of wherever you want. They don't have to be in the exact same position that I'm putting them. So I want you to trust your instincts as you're painting. And if you're inclined to put a color somewhere where I don't put it, go ahead and do that. If you end up not liking it later, you just cover it up with more paint, or you can wipe it off with a paper towel and reapply again. So with acrylic paint, especially for my beginner painters, be kind to yourself. You're experimenting, you're an adult kindergartner right now. Just have fun with the process. All right. And if you're holding your breath right now, take a big inhale for me. Even if you're not painting along, just take a big deep breath. We need that these days. I have moved on to the white and doing the same thing that I did with the teal, just scraping some of those colors on there, having fun with it. Anything that's frustrated you, scrape it into the canvas. All right. And if you followed some of my other videos, take your progress photo and get in the habit of taking progress photos when you paint, because it's one of the few times that we can look back and visually see how much we have evolved. So now I'm going to make the plate, and we're going to make kind of a light gray for that. So I pulled a little bit of white aside, grabbing a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of black. A little bit of black goes a long way. And I'm actually going to make that a little bit darker. If you want to put a colored plate on yours, go for it. If you want a gold plate or maybe orange or red, if you want to put a china pattern on your plate, go for it. And as you're painting at home, please send me pictures of what you guys paint. Like, it really makes me happy to open up my email and see those pictures and know that you guys are following along. And it helps me develop new content or anything that I might need to adjust for how I'm teaching stuff. So please send me photos, and you can send those to paintwithlovejoy@gmail.com. And here for the plate, I do kind of have a medium gray, and I'm going right over those lines I transferred. We can still see them through the paint just a little bit, and we'll use that as a bit of a base structure when we add on some darker gray and even some highlights. And if you overlap into your pizza slice or into your background, don't stress. Just wipe it off, take a deep breath, and reapply your paint. This is just painting. It is not the end of the world based on what you paint today. Hopefully it makes your world a little bit more fun, a little more tolerable. I am going right over those black lines. I'm covering them up completely. And I drew on my canvas with Sharpie markers so you guys could see those lines before we started painting. Now, if you do have to mix your shade a second or third time, don't freak out about trying to get the exact same shade. The more you mix your colors, the more your brain is taking on that information of what it looks like when this color and this color mix. So you're building your own mental library each time you paint. And try holding the knife in different ways, different directions. If you need to turn the canvas sideways, flip it upside down, put it on your lap. Adjust for what you need for your creative process. All right. Wipe the knife off. Oh, nice, Janet. Glad you drew the whole pizza. But it says, oh, you made it into a plate. That's all right. It's going to make a difference on how you slice it and decorate your pizza, so don't worry. All right. So actually, while the plate is drying, I'm going to move in to put the cheese on there so I can overlap with the pizza slices, and then we're going to go back and add some shadows and highlights on there. When I paint with this style in my own work, I actually let each layer dry, and I work on 4 or 5 paintings at the same time. But given that this is a 30-minute demo, I do structure stuff a little bit differently just so I can work it into this time frame. So now I'm actually moving on to yellow for the cheese of my pizza, and I am going to scrape some white on top of that. And because I do have my pepperoni slices on here, and it's going to be covered with a darker color, I'm actually just going to scrape right on top of them. If you do not want pepperoni on your pizza, you don't have to draw those circles, but you will still scrape your cheese on there, and then you can put your own toppings to your liking on your pizza. And again, it's just nice to push and scrape, and don't think about anything outside your four walls right now. You're focused on your canvas, and that's it. We've got some of our dripping cheese. There we go. Just covered it all up. And then wipe this off. And if you are interested in purchasing palette knives, you'll see that there's going to be plastic knives, metal knives. I think that's actually it right now. The plastic knives work just as well, and they are usually pretty cheap, so you can start with those. If you are moving up to the metal knives, I do recommend paying a little bit more and getting a stainless steel knife compared to just a regular steel knife. The stainless steel will not rust or tarnish, so it is worth that little bit extra. So now for the crust of my pizza, I grabbed raw sienna or my light brown, and I'm scraping that crust on there, and then we will put a darker color on top of it. And I'm going to continue this color underneath that cheese. We can see a little bit of the crust. And again, if the knife is too much, you can use a toothpick if you need to get into small little areas. And you can also do this with a brush or crayons or colored pencils. Use what you have at home. Don't feel like you have to have all the supplies or the most expensive supplies just to be creative. And again, in these smaller areas, I am just using kind of the tip of that knife and just kind of placing and moving and scraping just a little bit. There's no exact formula for how you're going to apply this. And I need to get over into this corner. If I was not filming this, I would have turned the canvas sideways, but I am trying to keep it in the same orientation for you guys at home that are watching. All right, I'm going to clean that knife off now. All right, everything still looks pretty good on screen. So now we're going to jump back to the plate. I'm going to make a darker gray, and we're going to put a little bit of a shadow because there's a little inset on the plate. And then we're going to put a little bit of a shadow right underneath our pizza slice. So I'm going to throw a little bit more white over here and going to mix right on top of the gray I was just using with more black. Let's go a little bit darker than that. There we go. So you do want to go 2 to 3 shades darker than what you had on your plate originally for your plate color here. And if you did change the plate color to be something else, you do want to just go 2 or 3 shades darker than the color that you used. And this one, we're going to be a little more controlling where we put it. So if you need to, you're going to use just the tip of it, or if you need to switch to a brush, go right ahead and do that. And we're going to start with kind of the obvious shadow. It's going to be right underneath our pizza slice. And this one, I'm just kind of using light pressure and then scraping away. And as I'm looking at this, I'm realizing it's not dark enough. So if you apply to your canvas and then you go, oh, not dark enough, or I need to adjust the color, go back and adjust your color. Totally okay. Painting is a bit, not quite a lateral process. It's a bit more abstract, and you go back and there's different variables. So don't feel like you have to do exactly the same process. That's why they call it creative freedom. So I made my darker gray and going right underneath that pizza slice, and I'm using light pressure to place my color, and then I'm going to scrape towards the bottom of that pizza pan or that pizza plate. So here we go. Now we start scraping down a little bit. And if you do realize that maybe you got too much, you can go back and you scrape it in and pull some of that color from underneath. Again, just kind of find your balance. Your instincts play a huge part, especially with the palette knife process. All right, so now I'm going to grab a little bit more of that. And we did have a little kind of inset. It was that interior circle line. And I think with this one, I may do a black outline at the end. We'll decide when we get there. I made another bit of the circle here, so just accentuating the perimeter. We're going to move to white paint next. Put a highlight on there. All right, so grabbing some of that white. We're going to put this highlight on the outside rim. Again, we're just scraping that direct white, straight white, just right on there. And then we're also going to kind of put it on this inside rim. And I am going to take just a little bit here next to that lip, that edge of that pizza plate. And by putting this light color next to the darker color, that's what kind of helps give that illusion of depth. Because I do tell all my students that you are a magician creating a 3D object on a flat 2D surface. All right, I still have a little bit of that original gray, so I'm just going to scrape some of that just right on the bottom. I want a little bit more of that thickness happening there. Much better. All right, so now we're going to move back to the cheese, and we're going to put a little bit of shadow, and it's going to feel kind of weird. But we're going to take a little bit of that raw sienna, and this one we're going to use a good amount of pressure because I don't want a whole lot of it transferred, but I do want to show that there's, you know, some texture in the cheese. There's some shadows happening from the ingredients underneath it. And again, just helps kind of create that 3D illusion on this flat surface. And yeah, I think this one will look good with a black outline. So I'll probably have to put more black paint on there, and I will do that with a brush. And if you find that, you know, you're painting and you have an idea that you set out to do, but about halfway through the painting, you're like, yeah, I'd rather go in this direction. Trust that. I do want you to trust your instincts, and that's how you learn to trust and decide if it works later. So a lot of the creative process is developing your own communication with yourself and how things look and what you want to accomplish. So again, be kind to yourself. So now I'm going in and I'm grabbing the burnt sienna, the darker, more reddish brown. And just like we did on the cheese, we're going to put some darker shadow areas on the crust. And I am just using that color straight by itself. It does mix nicely with that burnt or the raw sienna, the lighter brown. And again, it just kind of breaks up that space, and it's nice to just say, I painted with a knife. We're going to put a little bit underneath our cheese. And if you're painting at home, feel free to turn on some music, anything that's going to make you relax and enjoy your time a little bit more. Because I am live and have copyright issues, I don't have music on for you guys. All right, so now I'm actually going to refresh the white. And we're going to scrape some white on here for some highlights. And then I think we're going to put some pepperoni slices on. So start thinking about the toppings that you want for your pizza, and if you need different colors or need to Google an image on how to do a mushroom or a black olive, or if you want me to add extra toppings to mine, leave a comment and I'll see if I can add that topping, unless it's really disgusting. I'm not going to put anchovies on my pizza, sorry. Those of you that like your anchovies, you can send me a picture of your pizza. All right, so again, taking that white, scraping a little bit on the crust, and just use your power of observation to observe where I'm placing the color and just kind of place it in that general area. And now I'm on the cheese, giving a little bit of a highlight, kind of on the top part of our slice of our cheese, because I'm imagining that my light source is coming from the left-hand side. And wherever your light source is, that's generally where your highlights would go and your shadows would go on the opposite side. And the more that you paint and get creative, the more you'll start recognizing those. And if you want an even more in-depth version of that, go to my website, Paint with Lovejoy, check out the ultimate kit for Paint Your Pet. And in the Paint Your Pet course, I gear it towards first-time and beginner painters, but I teach you your value scale, where you learn to see your highlight, your midtone, and your shadow value. All right, so now I'm moving over to my pepperoni slices, and I'm just using that straight red. and we're going to scrape right on top of it where those circles are. And you can see that from my pressure, some of that yellow does kind of come through. So if you don't want that, this is where you could paint a little bit thicker, apply your paint a little bit thicker, and just kind of play with that texture. I kind of like the texture coming through, or that scraping part, so I'm going to leave some of it on mine. But if you want to fully opaque cover yours, go right ahead. And then my next question would be is how many people that are watching right now are going to have pizza for one of their next 2 meals? If you do, leave a comment and tell me what kind of pizza you had, because I think I might have to have some pizza tonight for dinner. All right, remember to breathe. If you are finding that you're shaky as you're painting, if you exhale as you touch the canvas with your brush or your knife, that will make you a little less shaky. And don't beat yourself up about anything for painting wise right now. You're doing a great job. I tell everybody the only way to fail at painting is to not paint at all. So even if you're not painting right now and you're just watching the video, I still count that as success, because you are looking at something creative and seeing something new for the first time. So you'd have to be pretty hard pressed for me to give you a negative review. So we will always find the positive in everything. Okay, and I actually kind of like that texture, but I'm going to make my pepperoni circles a little bit wider because I do want to cover those black lines. And again, if you drew yours, hopefully you drew it with pencil and you won't see these dark lines. I just put mine on there so you could see it at home a little bit easier. And it is kind of nice once you get into the groove of painting. You may paint for a couple of hours and you're just like, oh my gosh, there went my whole day. It is pretty amazing how you just forget about time, you forget about a lot of stuff as you're watching yourself change a white surface, a blank surface, into a creation. You know, and that's a huge accomplishment to be able to transform something like that. And there's a certain satisfaction of seeing that transition, seeing and knowing that you created it. So painting a lot of times is more about that personal satisfaction rather than being a multi-million-dollar living artist, and your artwork actually has a lot of value before you die. So you guys should buy all my artwork, for that way when I die, it will be worth so much money. Cool, just jumping over on the feed. Let's see. Nice. Sonia had a deep dish supreme on Sunday. Very, very yummy. And awesome, awesome. Cool. So I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me every morning. This has been such a great, consistent thing to do every day. And it's great knowing that I've got a community that comes and hangs out with me as well. All right, so let's see, what should I do next? If you want to add any other pizza elements, if there's something specific that you want me to add to my pizza, I'm more of a pepperoni. Sometimes I'll throw pineapple or even garlic on my pizza, but that's usually about it. So while I'm waiting, if there's any suggestions, I'm actually going to take a little bit of black. And as I'm looking at it, I'm not as inclined to do the outline as I was a couple minutes ago. So instead, I'm going to take this black, I'm going to make a few of my shadow places a little bit darker. And this is what we call increases my contrast. So now I'm actually just taking that straight black paint, and right where I had that dark gray on the rim before the inset of the plate, I'm putting that right up next to that white. And then I'm going to do the same thing right underneath the pizza. So again, as we look at our painting from a distance, and I want you to get into that habit as you're painting, to get out of your chair and look at your painting from 5 to 10 feet away. This is the normal viewing distance for most things in life, and especially artwork. Do not be upset if you like your painting more from that distance compared to 2 feet in front of you while you're creating. That's the lovely beauty of life, is everything. People, places, artwork, cities, all look better from a distance. There is no avoiding it. And then some of my students usually say dim lighting as well. So whatever it takes. But just start looking at your artwork from different perspectives so that way you can understand more of how you're creating, what you're learning, and you're observing how things look. That's very, very important in the world of art, and it's really important in life in general. The more observant you can be, the faster you could adapt to things. All right, let's see what else. Oh, let's put a little bit of a highlight on our pepperoni. So I'm going back to that white. I'm not going to move it too much because I don't want to create pink. So it's going to be just kind of like a quick little pass on the left-hand side of each pepperoni. I got to grab more white now. So just a quick little pass. Don't smush it in too much because that red is still kind of wet. And again, the more that you do this, the more comfortable you get with holding your tools and with what you're seeing. All right, I'm actually going to take that white one more spot right here. It's already pretty light right there, but like I said, I like a lot of high contrast. All right, let's see. Nobody threw any extra pizza toppings on there. Awesome, because I will enjoy my pepperoni pizza. All right, and let's see, that crust, it's actually, I'm going to add just one more shadow for that crust. So mixing the black and some burnt sienna. There we go. I want to hang it out a little closer, just a darker brown. And just this little tip down here, a little curve of the crust. Right. It's making me hungry too. I'm definitely going to be having pizza for either lunch or dinner tonight. All right, so I think that actually takes care of it. There's not much else that I can think that I want to add right now. So yeah, so thanks again for hanging out with me today. Tomorrow, I actually forgot what the topic is, but if you scroll down on my my main YouTube page, you should be able to see the subject matters for the next week and a half. And if you want me to paint something specific, please leave a comment and I'll add it to the list. And I'm going to keep this going. This has been really awesome for me. I hope it's just as awesome for you. And yeah, so check out my online school, check out the other videos, keep painting, and have a great day. All right. Take care, everyone. Ciao.